Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. This scheduled podcast is going to get right off to a quick start. We've got a guest tonight, and he's a native of Cleveland, Ohio, a U.S. Air Force veteran. Always nice to have another one of those on the show. He has a degree in simulation programming as well as a researcher. He's a best-selling author and experiencer of multiple paranormal and high strangeness events. He's appeared on multiple television programs, including History's Ancient Aliens, The Unexplained, Travel Channel's The Alaska Triangle, Discovery Plus Fright Club, Animal Planet's The Haunted, multiple series on Gaia TV, and more. Mike's also producer and director of docuseries The Shadow Dimension, available on several streaming platforms. He also produces an additional full-length content on Ancient Wisdom, Lost Civilizations, and the Supernatural on his extensive YouTube channel. He currently hosts Connecting the Universe interactive class and operates his own book publishing and video production company, Haunted Road Media. He's won the award for excellent media in paranormal field at the 2019 Shockfest Film Festival. Plus, he's an avid baseball fan, and you'll understand why that's important in our discussion later. Please welcome Mike Ricksecker.
Yeah, thanks for having me tonight, guys. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
So what was your job in the Air Force?
Computers. I've been an IT professional for over 30 years. I actually, this is big news for me. I just put in my 2-week notice with my full-time employer this past Friday, and I will be doing all of this sort of thing full-time finally. Although it's really been full-time. It's been like a second and third full-time job. But
yeah, we know how that goes.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I was a sheet metal fabrication guy in the Air Force.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, it was basically, structures and all that. I worked with avionics and some things, some of the computer guys when they were needing to get conduit wire fabricated and put in for their systems.
Yeah. Yeah, right on. Okay.
Well, aside from Air Force, Mike, you've done a lot. You've experienced a lot. I don't even know where to start, but the book itself is fantastic. Travels through time, inside the fourth dimension, time travel, and stacked time theory. I think probably the best thing to do would be to explain the stacked time theory, because that's pretty good, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're talking stacked time theory, we have to take a step back and really talk about what time really is. Yeah. So what is time? So time is really a human construct that we've developed to describe our reality. Time really doesn't exist. So, we use it to keep track of things. It's a record keeping mechanism so that we know when to plant the crops, when the seasons change, when to show up at work so that our employers don't get upset with us for being late, that sort of thing. So it's really a mechanism that we've come up with to keep track of ourselves. But really what that is, time, it's the fourth dimension. It's really where our consciousness resides. And so when you take the dimension of where you're sitting at, you can see and experience and touch all the other dimensions below you. So from the fourth dimension, we could freely interact with the third, second, first. There's a controversial zero dimension, which is a point, but our theoretical physics tells us that there are up to 11 dimensions. So that means there are ones that are above us, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so forth. So those dimensions there can freely look at time as a complete whole because they have free range over that particular dimension. That means that all time is here and ever present. So a stacked time theory, take where you are sitting right now. All time is concurrent. So that means every moment that has happened, is happening, and will happen are all stacked on top of each other, each moment like a photograph in a giant stack of photos. And on occasion, there are moments in which two of those photos in the stack, two of those moments will resonate the same frequency, and we'll get something that we might call a time slip, something that might be some of the supernatural activity that we see and witness, a ghost, haunting, these sorts of things, where it's really just two of those moments resonate the same frequency for a moment. They're overlapping each other at that time because all time is concurrent. It really doesn't exist.
So what that essentially what you're saying there is that when two of these moments in time overlap, they will bleed through on top of one another when they're resonating at the same frequency.
Yeah, and they'll get a glimpse of each other. So one of the stories that I love to tell, it regards my my very good friends, the Perrin family, Andrea and her mother Carolyn. The house that they lived in for 10 years during the 1970s has become famously known as the Conjuring House because their experiences there during that time were portrayed in the movie The Conjuring. Although really only about 1% to 2% of that movie is true, like maybe the names and something was going on. So it was very, very different. The events that happened to that family lasted the entire 10 years that they were there. And the controversial moment wasn't an exorcism. It was a seance that had gone bad. Well, a couple of weeks after that, that seance, which actually saw Carolyn get knocked backward from the table that was in the dining room into the parlor. Andrea she's the eldest daughter. She was up doing homework one night in the parlor, and Carolyn had gotten up, saw that Andrea was there, and asked her if she could, heat her up some of the leftover beef stew from that night's dinner and put on a short pot of coffee. Andrea's very helpful to her mom. Her mom's still kind of dealing with the fallout from the seance. And so Andrea goes to take care of that. Carolyn sits down in the parlor, and she's looking out toward the dining room. And all of a sudden she sees materializing into the dining room is this family out of what looks like the 1700s. You have this woman who's cooking over an open hearth. Now, at that particular point in time in the 70s, the fireplace in the dining room had been boarded up for about 100 years, but there was open, full fire going, woman's cooking over it. There's a couple of kids running around in the dining room, and there's two gentlemen sitting at a table with pewter steins. And all of a sudden they turn and they look at Carolyn, and the one kind of nudges the other and points over at Carolyn and says, "Well, would you look at that?" As if Carolyn was the ghost. So here you had two moments in time, one from the 1700s looking into the future, and then you had the 1970s looking back into the past, but they were able to recognize each other in that moment.
And this would explain a lot of these paranormal cases where you can interact, correct? Like, because this is the theory that I've ascribed to with a lot of the paranormal activity myself, is that is why you can have those kind of interactions rather than some of the other hauntings, so to speak, if you want to call them that, where it's just activity that is occurring.
Look at the investigation at the deep end, the temporal anomaly, right?
Right.
I mean, that's literally what Mike's saying. It's bleed over. That's a possibility. Yeah. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say it's the reason for it all, right? I don't believe that there's one singular answer. I do believe that some of these are human spirits, and really, if you think about it, when you're talking about the human consciousness, okay, we're in the fourth dimension. This is where our consciousness resides. If we lose the body, basically when we pass away, our consciousness escapes the body. Now, generally, and a lot of our religions teach that we go off to somewhere else, and that may be another dimension, or maybe even somewhere else outside the universe. But if that consciousness stays, well, then it's here without the body, and that's that would be some of these human spirits. So that would be one as well. But there are a lot of different things that are happening. But it would go to explain some of the things that are happening, that yes, some of these are actually time slips and two moments in time that are seeing and experiencing each other.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, we've addressed the time slips, temporal anomalies before, and I've been on an investigation where I swear I heard myself on a playback while we were conducting an EVP saying things that I had not said.
Yeah. And some of these are just ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was bizarre, man. So yeah, that definitely plays into it. Mike, you were on Ancient Aliens. One of my favorite episodes was the Shadow Beings, the Shadow
Thank
People
you.
episode, and which I believe they also had Mothman on that episode as well. So naturally has to be. But you have also experienced this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my first real significant paranormal experiences. And I've had several uh, what we'd call shadow person experiences after that, although each was really a bit different. And the first one was more of a, it, at the outset, it seemed like more of a nasty one because, it did get physical with me. I was scared to death. I was only about 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually didn't, even though I told the story, they actually didn't air this on Ancient Aliens. They basically had me on that particular episode, not as an experiencer, but as a SME, a subject matter expert, which was fine because I've done a ton of research in this. But yeah, when I was about 8 years old, woke up in the middle of the night. It's almost like the classic tale. Woke up in the middle of the night, and there's this tall, dark shadow standing in the corner of the bedroom. And my first reaction is not one, oh my gosh, I've got there's a shadow person here. I think there is an intruder that has broken into the house, and it's gonna either, I'm thinking, rob the place, kill me, maybe, because I'd seen enough television at that point in my life that I figured I had enough time to like gasp, like, and that was it. I was gonna be a goner. So I'm trying to scream, right? But nothing's coming out. My mouth opened up, nothing's coming out because I'm just too terrified, too frightened. So this thing, comes up to the bed, and it's a solid black, dark figure, leans over, and I'm just staring into this blank face. There's nothing there. There's no eyes, no nose, no mouth. It's just
Nothing.
all dark and shadowy. Yeah. And it ended up grabbing me by the wrists, crossing my arms across my body, and then running off down the hall. By that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off screaming in my parents' bedroom. And they're trying to calm me down, console me, trying to tell me that I just had a bad dream. But I knew I hadn't had a bad dream. This actually happened to me. Now, I would never call that particular house a haunted house. We lived there for like 10 years, and this was like the one incident like that ever happened there. But the next house that we moved into, stuff started happening right away where, I'm unpacking boxes, putting things away, and I kept seeing this shadowy form in my bedroom doorway. And I'd turn and look at it, and off would go toward my parents' bedroom. And this happened, many times over the first several days that we were there. I'd be unpacking boxes, putting things away. There's the figure. I'd turn and look, off it would go. It's like, what the heck's going on? So I'm 13 at this point, and I ended up telling my mom about it. Like, hey mom, I keep seeing this figure here in the house. And I guess maybe she thought I was a little more mature for my age at that point. I don't know how mature you can expect a 13-year-old to be, but more mature than an 8-year-old. And she actually told me that she had seen this thing too, which was great for me because it was affirmation that, okay, I'm not crazy. Mom has also seen this. And she said it in such a way that, she wasn't alarmed about it. She was just very matter of fact. Yeah, I've seen that too. So it's like, oh, wow. So I'm not crazy. Mom has seen it. She's not alarmed by it. I guess it's okay. It's a thing that happens here. So, so I didn't feel I had anything to worry about. I got playful with the thing. So anytime I'd see him in my doorway, I started calling him Tom, like Peeping Tom, and I'd see him in the doorway and say, "Hi, Tom," and off he'd run. So very, very different than the first experience, because this one, was not interactive at all. Would just hang out in the doorway and run off. He was actually, rather translucent, where that first one was very, very solid. And this one at the new house, that activity lasted for about the first 3 or 4 months that we were there, and then subsided. So I just chalked it up to something that was in the house, was curious about the new family moving in, deemed that we were okay, and it went about its business. So yeah, two very, very different experiences with shadow entities, which is why throughout my book, A Walk in the Shadows, I try really hard to say, hey, we're talking about a lot of different things. So when somebody asks me, okay, what's a shadow person? I'm like, rolling up the sleeves. Okay, we got to dive in because that can be a lot of different things. Yeah. It's going to be a minute.
Because you have all these different different types of experiences. You've got the Hat Man, you've got the typical shadow beings, you've got what I have here at my house, which are the ghost cats.
The ghost cats.
Oh yeah, there you
that's
go.
what I refer to them as. Like we hear them. Like we can actually hear the cats from time to time. We have a dog, and the dog even responds to these cats.
But you've never had.
So it's wild.
Yeah.
Well, and I have a good friend, Rob Guthrow. He's a psychic medium. He's written several books, and he specializes in spirit communication with animals. And he also does a lot with dog rescue. He and his husband have both been really, really involved with that for a number of years. So they have a lot of animal spirit activity in their house. And Rob has had some fascinating stories of like shadow dogs in his house, but some of them have been like half and half. Like half of it's in shadow and half of it's in apparition, which is really, really interesting.
See, our the previous owners of the house, that's what they were really into. Was they would go and they would rescue these shelter animals that were senior animals.
Okay.
So it was end of life animals. And apparently, like I was told when we purchased the house that there's like 14 or 15 bodies in our flower beds.
Wow.
Because instead of having them cremated or something, they would just put them in the flower bed.
Yeah. And
so they warned me, if you ever go digging through your flower beds to redo anything, don't freak out. This is why.
Well, as long as it's animals, not human bodies. You hear those stories too. Like there's the one, what was it? The little old lady in San Francisco, early 80s, where it's literally underneath her flower bed, she had all of these bodies.
Yeah. There was oddly enough, there was one of those in my old hometown.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's 2 or 3 missing people that were found in a flower bed out front. But that was a mess.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder.
So when you get into the topic of time travel and time maneuverability, where is a good starting point? Because this is a topic that is full of rabbit holes, just like the shadow entity topic. And even more so, though, if you ask me.
Yeah. It's we're talking time travel. You have to break down what the dimensions are and how that works. So, like in the book, I do a little short dimensional primer. If really somebody's coming into it new, I would actually recommend a couple of pieces of pop culture so they can kind of start to wrap their heads around it a little bit. One would be, it's one of my all-time, well, actually both of these are like all-time favorite movies. One would be Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour, in which he basically wills his consciousness from 1980 back to 1912, because I believe time travel really have more to do with consciousness and meditation rather than like DeLorean and a flux capacitor. So Back to the Future was a lot of fun. It's not going to be like that. The other one would be Interstellar, because I think they do a really good job when they get to that time component toward the end of the movie of really explaining how different dimensions would work and how dimensions above time would see it all as one physical object. And the depiction there of the daughter's bedroom, every moment of her bedroom being available is really, I believe, one way in which those other dimensions may be viewing ours.
Well, you did touch upon the non-physical aspect, and that part blew me away, because literally, like I told you before with the show, it was like, I was really hoping that you'd realize you came so close to going out of body on that.
Yeah.
and then you did realize it, but you were right on it. I think back in the day, I termed it like astral time projection or something. We were literally doing this unbelievably, doing the same kind of weird stuff, but you had a reason. You had a really good reason, and I love how you did it because you put yourself in the actual frame. Like you, I loved how you described that in the book. How you just, it's going to be that day. You made it that day, and you said that How did in the world did you pull that off?
Honestly, I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
To give the listeners a little bit of context, so that move that I had made, that I previously referenced, when I was 13, we had moved from Massachusetts to Ohio. Our family was originally from Ohio. My dad's job had transferred him to Massachusetts for 10 years, and we moved back. So I grew up from 3 until I was 13, with a whole, group of kids that were my, best buddies and what have you for many, many years. And so, I was homesick. So on the anniversary of that move, again, Somewhere in Time being one of my all-time favorite movies, I'd seen it several times as a kid, that I decided I was going to attempt that. I was going to will my consciousness back in time so I could see my friends, one more time, maybe spend the last day with them or something like that. Now, if I'd have really pulled it off, given the way it's portrayed in the movie, I really would have shown up a year prior at that house. So maybe I would have popped in on the previous family, or actually they were probably moved out. So I might have popped into an empty house before we actually moved into it. So yeah, I wouldn't have quite gotten that piece of it right, but I still got to this point. And again, I really didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I was just trying to mimic what Christopher Reeve's character, Richard, had done. And so he's convincing himself that he was, at that hotel back in 1912. He had actually taken all the modern amenities out of his room. He'd gotten all the his clothes to be from that era and so forth. I didn't really have that to worry about, being that I was only going to go back about a year. But I had put myself into a meditative state, not knowing that that's what I was doing. And all of a sudden, as I'm lying there in this state of being, I started feeling these undulating waves, kind of up and down, up and down, up and down. It's like, oh, I'm kind of going for a ride here. What's this? And then I started feeling this, electric tingling going on around me, and that's what spooked me. That spooked me, and I snapped out of it. And I didn't try it again that night because I had no idea what in the world I was just about to do. But yeah, it was some years later, talking about it with several different people, that came to realize, yeah, I almost went OBE. I almost astral projected. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right on the verge.
I was right on the verge.
That's pretty awesome. But I think you're right, though. I think that a lot of it is non-physical, and I don't see why that's such a hard stretch for people, especially if you kind of consider it the way that you did, as you were speaking. If we can look at time all as one from outside, right, rather than from down here where we're seeing it or experiencing it. To step outside the box and look down in the box, then you could see all those points and interact with those points. It's absolutely an amazing subject, and it just amazes me how you got fascinated by it. And and then it just kind of went with the rest of your life. It kind of put you down that paranormal rabbit hole that we all kind of drift down, I think. And then shadow beings, paranormal investigations. It's
it's all connected. All this different phenomena. I have my connected universe portal, which is a community, like-minded people come together. We talk about a lot of these different topics, but the idea that everything in our universe is connected. Yes, the physical universe, that the people around Earth are connected. We're connected to the Earth is connected to the sun, the rest of the planets, the solar system, to the galaxy, to the universe, and beyond. Yes, all that is connected, but also on other dimensional levels, we are connected. Everything is energy, frequency, resonance, vibration, and all of that connects around this universe. So when we start looking at things, shadows, ghosts, apparitions, other supernatural activity, the cryptids, and what have you. All those things are connected together as well. And when we look at some of these shadow incidents, some of these can be time slips too, that what we're seeing and experiencing in that moment is limited by the physiology of our eyes. We only see into a very narrow band on the spectrum. And so it's the way our eyes are trying to interpret the light play that's in front of us. And so a fascinating story that I've included in the book. There's another podcast that I was doing a couple of years ago, story that was related to me was from a young man. And when he was a child, he'd walked into the kitchen one day and there was this tall, dark, hooded figure standing by the kitchen table, and it freaked him out. He was scared. Boom, ran out of there. So it became like the hooded shadow person story in the household. Well, when he was older, when he was a young man, he's in the kitchen. He's making a sandwich at the kitchen table. He's wearing a hoodie. All of a sudden, he sees walking into the kitchen this short little shadow being that stops and then boom, takes off out of the kitchen. He realizes in that moment, oh my gosh, that was me the whole time. I saw myself in the future when I was little, and now, here I am older and I'm seeing myself in the past. But he only was able to see it as a shadow rather than the full thing playing out. And so the question then becomes, okay, why that? Why a shadow? Why didn't he see the whole, himself, the way that he was? Well, again, coming down to frequency, resonance, vibration, that sort of thing. I think we're old enough. We remember how back in the day, you're tuning, a radio, and you still turn a dial these days, but it's like click, click, click. But back in the day, you had to really kind of fine tune it to get on the channel the right way, to get the right frequency to tune to the station that you wanted to listen to. If you're a little bit before, a little bit after, you get all that static, and it wouldn't come in clear. And so I think that's kind of what is happening in this particular case, is that he was able to tune into the channel, so to speak, but not fully. It was like a little bit before, a little bit after, and it came off static. You were in this shadow form. And that's the way it was able to kind of manifest on between those two moments, and that's all that his eyes could interpret at that time.
So hypothetically speaking, if you are intentionally doing one of these things to try to go back, like you were doing the meditative state to go back and hang out with your buddies, that is essentially like one of those old school radios. You're putting a bigger antenna on it, a better receiver, and it's more focused, more clear. Whereas that guy that had his encounter, it was more of a, he was in the frequency, but he wasn't on the exact band.
Right. It was totally unintentional. So he wasn't able to grasp it fully. And and I think, so when people ask, okay, how can I really time travel? Is that possible? I do believe, through some very, very practiced meditation, with that deliberate intention to do that we will be able to achieve that. Now, for how long will we be able to, hang out in 1927 for 3 days or something like that? I don't know. I can't make any promises there, but I do believe that with very, very practiced intention, that we will be able to experience those moments, where that we will be able to actually travel through time, forward or backward.
I could totally see it.
Go ahead, Ron.
I could totally see it. What he's describing basically is a mechanism to where you could even employ technology with that, and just have various biofeedback systems in play, brainwave monitoring with what is.
I mean, there's an entire video game series based off of that.
Well,
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. Yeah, there you go. And I think technology, I think technology won't be, the full delivery system, right? So it's not going to be, again, it's not going to be to jump into a DeLorean with a flux capacitor.
But it'll be the immersive experience.
It will. Right? I think the technology could probably help us fine tune it a little bit. So, as we're putting that intention out there and we're, making the connection that maybe the technology could help us kind of fine tune the frequency, maybe even be able to hold it a little bit longer for us, but it won't be the catalyst.
Yep.
So now, is that something that you may or may not have played with while doing your simulation studies?
Oh, the simulation study. That's yeah. Well, I have right.
And if you haven't, it's okay. We can like work out a check later where when you institute this process, we can get some royalties or something.
Right. Well, it's interesting when you go down the rabbit hole of simulation theory. The question: Are we in a simulation? And of course, I'm going to say yes, but I don't think it's necessarily a computer simulation. We've attributed it to a computer simulation now because, for one, the Matrix movies, which were, amazing pop culture sensation. And two, the computers are the height of our technology right now. So we usually, when we think of things that we feel are kind of beyond our grasp, that, it's going to take our highest technology to make that achievable. Well, okay, that would be computers right now. But, if you look back at, like, I always use Nikola Tesla in this example. He had ideas. If you look back into his interviews and his documentation from like as far back as the 1890s, he was describing artificial intelligence back then. He had his teletomaton, which was really like the world's first drone that was, controlled by radio waves. And he had designs of, he could, and basically it was like a little boat. He had built it during the Spanish-American War. His grand idea was to be able to replace soldiers with machines, and the machines could, fight out the wars rather than people. And he had basically created this little boat drone. But, we're talking radio waves, gears, wheels, that sort of thing. And he went further, and this is where people started laughing at him. It was like, oh, yeah, not only could this thing be able to make its own decisions, like be able to figure out on its own, where am I going to sail? What are my targets? When do I launch a torpedo, etc. He went further and said, I could build one of these in my own image that would look like, act like, sound like me. And you wouldn't know the difference between, the teletomaton and myself. He's describing artificial intelligence. He's describing building a robot with AI. But again, he's thinking about, in the terms of radio waves, gears, wheels, this sort of thing. Silicon microchip hadn't been invented until long after he had passed away. So he had the idea, but he didn't understand the technology. And I think the same thing with the idea of being in a simulated universe right now is that we don't really understand the technology that makes this work the way that it does. I believe it's probably something that's more organic or biological in nature rather than machines, computers, that sort of thing. But you look back at our ancient religions, and they essentially talk about us being in a simulation. They just don't use the word simulation. Like when you look at the idea of reincarnation, that you come down here on earth, you live out a life, you learn some lessons. When you pass away, it's like logging back out to where is that? Some other dimension, the home world, heaven, whatever you want to call it. And then you start the cycle over. And even same thing with Christianity, that they talk about that, we're down here in this world right now, preparing to go on to another world, something that is beyond this one. So again, same idea of a simulation without using the term. So yeah, we're in a simulation.
Now, with that said, there's all this talk about Tesla. I'm going to go back to you. You got me thinking about Tesla there for a second.
All right.
There's all this talk about Tesla and people who say that he was like a man out of his own time. Mm-hmm. Like he was. Do you think that it's possible that he could have been projecting himself and coming up with some of his ideas from the future, like looking forward, and because of a lack of his lexicon, a lack of the language that he had at the time, that you have automatons and not artificial intelligence. You have certain other words that are put in place because it's the language that he had. He didn't have the modern language.
Yeah, the knowledge of the world on a device that you can hold in your pocket.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly.
The cell phone. It's not all the knowledge in the world is on it, but I can access it because I have access to the internet on there. Yeah. So with Tesla, okay, again, when we look at time, everything's there. It's all whole, right? If we look from beyond time itself. So everything within this universe, from the very beginning to the end, it's all there. It's all concurrent. That means all the knowledge of the universe from beginning to end is there as well. Now, we are able to access that knowledge. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. You have my good friend Emily Harrison, who runs the Akashic Academy. People talk about the Akashic records. I just call it eternal knowledge. There is knowledge out there from the universe that we can tap into and bring down here. Now, for me to be able to use something like that, I would need to be able to, have some sort of understanding of it. And I think Tesla did. He has some really, really fascinating ideas and concepts. He had a very, very creative mind, very, very intelligent mind. So when he was tapping into that, and he talked about when he was a younger man, astral projecting and things like this, when he was a young man back in Serbia. So he was already practiced in that. So yeah, sure. While he was maybe sleeping or maybe doing a thought experiment, sitting in a chair, meditate, whatever his methodology was, I do believe that he was tapping into a lot of that eternal knowledge of the universe and bringing down ideas and concepts that the world just wasn't ready for yet. That was far ahead of his time, and that's why he got laughed at. But yeah, he was dead on every single time.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I know that's kind of off topic for tonight, sort of, but like that was.
It all ties back in. Yeah.
Tesla's been on my brain here the last little bit. There was a guy that actually created a working Tesla turbine in his garage, and like it's highly functional. And so I've been going back and doing a lot of research on him and all that. It's just pretty cool. But
yeah, very, very cool. Yeah. Yeah. His wireless technology, it's unfortunate because I think it's kind of almost a problem with humanity that if an idea is too many steps down the road that we just can't even entertain it. And so with Tesla and the Wardenclyffe Tower, I enjoy talking about this too, by the way.
Good.
With Tesla and the Wardenclyffe Tower, he had his funding with JP Morgan pulled it. Yep. And the reason being is that Tesla's talking about, wireless across the world. Well, that was like too big for them to really grasp. They're over there looking at Marconi, and Marconi's using Tesla's technology. And Marconi's like, well, I'm going, ship to shore, or shore to ship. I got a ship out there in the water, and I'm able to broadcast. And the financiers at the time are like, I can grasp that. I can grasp that you're sending that to the ship. And Tesla's like, ship? What are you talking about? That's nothing. Marconi's using my technology. That's nothing. We're going the world. And that was just too much for them. They couldn't wrap their heads around it.
Like trying to figure out how to price it, how to sell it, because Tesla was like, let's make it free. We can do this. We can make this a free service.
Right. And they wanted to make their money. Yeah.
And Morgan, especially, he wanted that return on investment. So he's got to say, how can I cash in on this? I can't. You're wanting to make it free for everybody. How do we regulate it? How do we price it? But yeah. Anyway.
Well, that's an added bonus, actually. We don't get to talk Tesla with too many people, Mike. So.
Right.
He was such a fascinating person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was.
100%. We got to bring it up. UFOs, UAPs.
Oh yeah.
The relation, because we're hearing these stories now that there are these things that are kind of distorting, I guess, space time. If that's what if it's true of what we have been hearing. It kind of tracks, and it kind of needs a little bit more explanation. And you're probably the best one to talk about time dilation that we've had on the show.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Sometime before I published my book, I've been posting things on my social media and what have you for a while on time travel, stacked time theory, and what have you. And I had somebody tell me that they couldn't wrap their head around stacked time theory, because it's like, how do you account for time dilation? So basically, the idea of gravity affecting time. So you put it atomic clock in space, you bring it back down, and the time is going to be a little bit different. But here's the thing, and to me, it's so simple. I mean, yes, within our dimension, because we are stuck in what we call the river of time. We as humans are there's a rule set that's been placed on us. So analogy that I use with the river of time is, time is the water, but it's not time itself. It's not the water that's making the river flow. It's the banks holding the water in. That's the mechanism to keep the water going. If you remove the banks, all the water spills out and it's a stagnant pond. So then all time would be there concurrent. But the banks are keeping it in place, flowing. So there are rules set on this system. So time dilation plays a part in those rules with the way that the solar system and all that is constructed. However, if you take yourself outside of time, all time is already there as a whole, you don't have to worry about time dilation. That's not affecting you from the fifth, sixth, and beyond, because time doesn't exist to you. It's like it's like me holding the cell phone. It doesn't matter what widgets and stuff are going on within the phone. They're playing around with each other, interacting with each other, changing each other. It doesn't matter to me so much because the whole phone is right there, right? So to me, the whole idea of time dilation, not jiving with stacked time theory, I'm just like, it doesn't matter because all time is there.
So basically everything is now. That's what you're trying to say.
Everything is now.
Everything is now.
It's all here.
Because you're only experiencing now. You can't experience what you just experienced. You're still experiencing now, basically.
Yeah, you can get into it's interesting when you look into some of the Greek philosophers. I think it was Socrates. He was the one that was always stuck on the now. And it's interesting reading through some of that Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, because when you're reading their materials, like you can hear the gears grinding in their brains while they're trying to make sense of it. Yeah,
it's true, because it'll mess your head up if you sit there and really try to think about it too much. And
again, too, I think it comes down to one of those situations where if those guys were alive today, having the language we have today, would they still be struggling as much? Would the gears still be grinding, or would they be a little bit more lubricated? Obviously, they'd still have some difficulty, but I think that they'd move a little smoother now with the terminology and language that we use.
And they might have a little more context. To be able to describe what it is was going on up there. Yeah.
Because a lot of their pontificating is them going almost around in circles to try to make other people understand the concept that they just explained. And then it's like they're looking at somebody, and you can read it as if they're looking at somebody and they just told you a concept, and you're like, okay, we're going to try that again, and we're going to loop back around. And then it's trying to figure out your audience. Okay, what can this person relate to as I'm describing this? And so that's why it can travels through time. I include a lot of pop culture. There are a lot of pop culture references in there so that people can kind of relate. Okay, if you're not understanding what it is I'm describing here, go watch this particular movie because they got an example of what I'm talking about.
Baseball.
There you go.
The baseball analogy was probably one of the best. I'm just like, well, this makes perfect sense. I mean, so as far as it goes, the book is great. I mean, there's hands down, it is great. It explains time in multiple ways. I love how you went through the paradoxes. You actually explained the paradoxes because a lot of people have, they're only going to hear like a couple of paradoxes, and you've got them all pretty much listed out there. And
got a few,
quite a few. You did quite a bit of research, is what I'm saying. And I just appreciate the book in general because you don't have too many books. I don't know of any, to be honest with you, that touch this subject in the way that you touched it. So,
as far as like a modern book, maybe not so much. You go back into maybe the earlier 20th century, mentioned somewhere in time Richard Matheson, and actually in the book version of that, which was Bid Time Return, since been renamed to Somewhere in Time. But he has his character Richard go to the library to look up books and research time and time travel, and the books that he referenced in there were actual real books. So I of course grabbed those for my research as well. What's going on in here? J.B. Priestley's Man in Time and some others. And it's been a while since books like that have been written. And I think at the heart, travels through time. And this is what I say about it is there's a lot of science without being too sciencey.
Yeah,
there's a lot of metaphysics without being too metaphysical.
Yep.
But at its heart, Travels Through Time is a philosophy book.
Yep. It is well balanced, and if anyone really wants to understand the subject, it is the book, and we will definitely be recommending it because,
thank you.
I mean, it's the easiest way to understand it, honestly. I mean, you can do the whole, the YouTube things where you're listening to the philosophers, or you can watch the same explanation of dimensions over and over and over again, but the way that you did it is that's how you do it, man. It's perfect.
I appreciate that.
I really like the fact that you touched on so many of the different phenomena and you pulled them into this and said, could it be? And that's literally what you did. You didn't say this is exactly what this is. You said this could explain this, and I like that too. Time traveling, I guess beings from the future brought up as potential for, some of the non-human intelligence kind of things that we're hearing today too. So you were right on that as well. So
and that's another one I believe is definitely a legitimate possibility. Now, I've had some colleagues that have really jumped on the bandwagon of non-human intelligences or UFOs and UAPs that, they're all time travelers. They're all us from the future. And again, love the idea. Let's rein it in a little bit because I don't believe they all are. Are some of them? Sure. Why not? But I do believe that we have UFOs from somewhere else in the cosmos, some craft that has crashed here with extraterrestrial life form. I do believe that. I do believe some of these are interdimensional beings, maybe ultra terrestrials, beings from another dimension that are here with us, that are around us right now as we're speaking. So there's a lot of different possibilities for all of this. One of them being time travelers. But even then, if we're talking, time travelers from Earth, doesn't necessarily mean that they're human. Right. I mean, the Earth is, 4.5 billion years old right now. We've got another 5 billion years to go approximately until, the sun becomes a red giant and destroys the planet, which it's going to happen, unfortunately. But so we're at a unique position in the history of the Earth where we're kind of like right in the middle of it, which is pretty fascinating. But, if you think about this, the dinosaurs went extinct 64 million years ago. That's just over 1% of the entire lifetime of the Earth ago. So you think 64 million, that's a long time. It's like, and it pales in comparison to the rest of the history of the Earth. So
in the grand scheme, it's a blip.
It's a blip. And humanity, the oldest Homo sapien remains that they have found, to date, maybe ones that are older, but to date, 315,000 years, which is even a quicker blip. So how much longer are humans going to be around on this planet? Are we going to last another 6,400, maybe 100 million years? Maybe not. Are we going to annihilate? There's all kinds of different things that can happen. We could annihilate ourselves. There could be a cataclysm. We may have to get off the planet for a variety of reasons and finally go colonize somewhere else. So 100 million years from now, 200 million years from now, we may not even be here on this planet. But during that time, another intelligent life form could have evolved on this planet, developed civilization, developed time travel, and could be coming back in time. So it could be something, indigenous to Earth, but not us, or could still be an extraterrestrial from another planet, a billion years from now that needs to colonize. They do so on this planet. Humanity is long since gone, but they build their civilization, develop time travel technology, go back in time, and that could be us. So it still could be extraterrestrials, but living here on Earth in the future. So so there's a lot of different possibilities that we could play around with here.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's one that'll make you think, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there's so many variables. It could be some of these non-human biologics. We're calling them non-human biologics. They could be some kind of biological synthetic entities that beings in another galaxy or remote or out of bodying their consciousness into those things and piloting those around. And it's like not a flesh suit, but some kind of, to that nature, and could be a mobile suit that they use for their consciousness. And then when they're done, they sit down in a chair, boot back to where they're at.
Yeah. You have to think about, let's think about us, right? And how we are going to go and explore the cosmos, right? Right now, we're struggling just to get back to the moon, let alone go outside, the galaxy or what have you. Now, the Voyager satellites, just a handful of years back, finally got outside the solar system. Okay, great. That was a lifetime ago, right? It was like back in the 1970s. That was when they were launched. So that was a long time ago. For us to be able to do that and explore outside of our solar system, human life is not going to last long enough to do that with our current technology. So as we start to expand out, we're going to have to do different things. Like you said, we would have to develop a similar sort of thing where we could, maybe it's going to be, drones or robots. Maybe it's going to be some sort of, form that we can actually log into an experience. Maybe this is where we come up with some breakthroughs in quantum entanglement. We're able to entangle ourselves across the cosmos with something like this. So we would have to look at something like that ourselves. So why wouldn't other life forms within the universe be doing the same sort of thing as they're expanding and exploring?
Makes perfect sense to me. I mean, because I think there's multiple explanations for just about all this stuff, same way that you do. I just don't think there's a holy grail. I think that there's just so many things. And I think that's why the quest goes on, because it's it's just a never ending thing. It's like we're digging for the gold at Oak Island at this point.
Yeah.
It's like we're not going to get it, but boy, we're making a good show trying.
They are. Yeah, a lot of but and it's the journey. I don't think they're ever going to find it. I think it's long since gone, but it's still really fascinating, all the other
artifacts.
Archaeological artifacts that they've come across in really kind of rewriting history. That has been fascinating.
Yep. I agree. And it's kind of an analogy for exactly what's happening here. Look at all the progress that's been made. We've discovered, certain frequencies at this point. We know that there's, the brainwave interaction. We're talking about things that once were considered occult that are now being seriously taken a little bit more seriously by science, especially with dream research and, the brain research. I mean, who's to say? I mean, we're just finding these great little tidbits along the way, and maybe one day those little pieces will go together and make a puzzle. But at this point, man, it's just scattered.
It is, but we're at an interesting point in time right now where, apropos time, we're at an interesting point in our history right now.
See what you did there?
I know. In which we're able to kind of freely talk about these things. Back 30, 40, 50 years ago, a lot of it was kind of taboo, or you're a whack job or a nut job or that sort of thing.
Well, even earlier than that, like the late 90s, early 2000s, that was still very taboo.
I mean, I didn't talk about my stuff for like 25 years. It's the same way with Joe. He didn't say anything for a while.
Yeah.
So same.
Exactly. It's really been like the advent of the internet, people being able to connect, talk about these sorts of things. And then some of the, television shows as, they've come out, some of them may have seemed, very, fantastical or whatever. But they got people talking about a lot of this different activity, got them talking about their own experiences and looking, hey, these people are over here talking about things that they've experienced. I've had that experience too. and they've felt more comfortable now that they're not alone. And so I think that's been really, really big, is in this field as it has continued to expand, for people to realize that they're not alone. You're experiencing these things too. A lot of this strange phenomena is real. There's other things going on in the cosmos. Okay, great. We may not see where that eventually ends in our lifetime, but if we can keep pushing that forward and take that knowledge that we've gained in our lifetimes here, and that openness to be able to talk about and pass that on to the next generation, as long as they pick up the mantle, they can keep that going to keep this expansion happening.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. Just trying to normalize a little bit of the paranormal, and you're not alone. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, and that's great.
And that's one of the reasons why we do what we do.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Exactly.
It's we're way more than just the radio show here. We're out on the road, we're doing investigations, and we're talking to people. We're bringing them into the fold with other experiencers and letting them know they're not alone.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm happy to hear you guys are doing that. That's what it's about.
Yeah, it is what it's about, I think. Mike, I really thank you so much for coming to the show. I don't even know, how did you hear about us? Because I got a mail and I'm like, wait.
I have to thank my my PR team, Katie and Rachel, for that. Yeah.
Yes, thank them, because that was just absolutely. I'm like, wait a minute. I know this name, and I couldn't place it at all. And I had to go look it up. I was like, okay. Shadow people. And what's really funny is we just did a Shadow People episode not too long ago.
Yeah.
We did a revisit of it too.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a fascinating subject. It really is. And I think that you've pretty much hit it as far as all the possibilities of what it could be. But man, your description, I've seen a shadow being on a paranormal investigation, but never like what you described.
Yeah.
That just blank nothing. That's something, man. That's something.
It was pretty harrowing when that happened. And what's interesting? Again, it's however long it takes to dive into and figure out, what exactly did I see and experience? What really happened to me? It took me until a few years ago, going through a hypnotic regression, to really discover what that was. Now, I had become, over time as an adult, more open to it being something more than a thing attacking me, because ultimately it didn't actually hurt me. Yeah, I was scared. I was a little kid, but through that hypnotic regression, I actually got to see, and she was able to channel the being and the entity itself, something from outside of our dimension, that it was basically on a research mission here to study humanity. It was assigned to a room of a human child that night. Didn't realize at first that I could see it until I reacted, and then what it was trying to do was put me into a self hug and get out of there so it would stop scaring me. So I was really, really fascinated. A totally different take on it, and the fact that I was able to through that actually be able to see through the eyes of that entity. So I'm looking down at myself, which was wild, and be able to kind of feel what it was feeling, that it felt terrible, that it was actually scaring me in that moment, and to discover, this is a being from, and what it said, it didn't even call it a dimension. It said it was from another space. And the hypnotherapist, Ariana, was like, well, do you mean another dimension? And the response was, well, you might call it another dimension, but really it's another space, which tells me that even as I'm going on of all this stuff about, there's all these different dimensions and etc. It's like, we don't really quite grasp exactly what that is. Like our science is, come to some idea and figured out, there's, at least 11 of these that we figured out, but I don't think we really truly understand exactly what it is yet.
Man, just absolutely fantastic.
So, Mike, where can the people who are listening to Wild and Weird Radio find you on? I know you have the YouTube channel, and you've got your books. Where can they find the books, and where can they find you?
Yeah, best place would be MikeRicksecker.com. You can find all my books there, links to the podcast. You can find the links there to the events that I have going on, we have the big Egypt tour coming up here in April, the 16th to the 28th, Stargates of Ancient Egypt, second annual one for that. And then there's also links there to the Connected Universe portal, which again is my online community where like minds come together, discuss these topics, and it's a wonderful site.
Go subscribe now. I'm telling you, the amount of content that you've provided over there. I was over there today. I was just like, this is.
Oh, really? Okay.
This is amazing. Oh yeah,
Thank you.
I subbed immediately. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
It's amazing. It's just the amount of work, and I appreciate the work because hey, we know how that goes. So congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And we definitely look forward to hearing some more work from you in the future.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's hard to say what you're going to do, but or you've already done it. It's possible. Well, you've already did it.
It's in the works. Travels Through Time is the first book of the Connecting the Universe series, and so there's going to be follow-ups to all that. Yeah, I started with time because if we're going to Connecting the Universe was originally going to be its own single book, big book, but it just hit me last year when I was in Egypt. I'd just given a presentation on it was on the Stargates. It was on we had Atlantis in there, Earth energy, all of that. And as we're driving off to one of the temples after the presentation, it just kind of hit me like, nah, Connecting the Universe isn't one book. It's an entire series. And so, I'm going to be talking about all those different topics throughout the series. But the question became, okay, what do I start with here? It's like, well, let's talk about time, the way the universe works, dimensions. Let's do that first. And then we'll get into the other topics after that.
Wow. I think that's a good way to do it because it's a primer.
Exactly.
You kind of have to understand the base code first, and then you can build on that with the other books.
Exactly.
So we're looking forward to getting our hands on the rest of those books. I need to go ahead and order the first book. I have watched some of your content on YouTube, and obviously the Ancient Alien stuff. But yeah, thank you for joining us. This has been an absolute ball. Now, Ron, do you want to go ahead and do you want me to wrap us up, or we want to keep going a little bit?
We'll go. We'll let Mike head off, but we will keep going a little bit because I want to discuss some stuff. And it's all good, Mike. Don't worry. It's amazing stuff. I love it. And we definitely want to get you back someday in the future. See what they did there?
I was going to ask actually before we got off here.
But we've already done it, apparently, right?
We're planning an Atlantis Lemuria episode in the future, if that might be something that you would be interested in coming on and being a content expert on for us.
Sure. Could certainly talk about that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just email me and we'll set it up.
Absolutely,
awesome,
my friend.
Sounds good. Well, Mike, thank you so much. We really appreciate everything.
Thank you for your work.
Appreciate your time tonight. And guys, go check it out. MikeRicksecker.com. It's got links to everything where you can find him. You can find his books. You can find links to his portal where everybody comes together and talks. Go do the thing. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you. All right. Wow.
That was fun. That was a good one.
Wow. What do you think, man?
It was a really, really interesting talk. I'd watched some of his content on YouTube, just getting caught up with more of his work beyond the Ancient Alien stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he actually came up in the reason I wanted to ask him specifically about the Tesla thing. I knew he was interested in Tesla. Yeah. So I wanted to get that little bit in there. It's cool to see somebody else who kind of is thinking along the same lines as we are.
Love it.
And it's really cool. It's really, really cool.
It's really awesome. I love his take on time in general. Blew my mind when I was reading this thing because it was just like, oh, he's getting ready. And that's what we were talking about before the show. It was like, in the beginning, he starts telling you about, basically he's described an out-of-body experience, an aborted out-of-body experience. He just didn't understand that's what it was. And I'm like, he almost had an out-of-body experience. I even told you that. I was like, dude, had an out-of-body experience almost. By the end of the book, he does figure it out. And he's like, yeah, that's what it was. And it's just amazing to hear the similarities in a lot of that stuff. So absolutely awesome. Touched on a lot of things, gave new light, I think, to some of the current stuff that is going on out there. there's a lot of weird stuff that is going on out there right now.
There really is a whole lot of weird stuff going on, man. And the tensions are only escalating, which we've seen today. We'll talk about that on the live with you guys. You'll have heard that.
You mean we did talk about that? See, time travel. Go back to the now then. The then now. I don't know how this works, man. It's time.
But the tensions are getting thick, and seeing it bubble off right now between professionals
it's
in the
concerning.
field
That's
publicly is interesting.
It's concerning to me.
Like I can see where you're saying it's concerning, but to a degree, I think we need it. At this point, I think we need it. That a lot of this is set stagnant for so long that somebody's got to put on the boxing gloves and start swinging to get some answers.
I agree with you on this. However, when I'm saying concerning is I'm concerned that we're going to see the sides start to be gone, the sides start to be formed. And
I can see that.
You know, we've always said the best way to stop something is to start a division.
Yeah.
Divide it. Once you divide it, you've conquered it. So who's to say that this isn't some kind of some kind of play? Who knows? I don't know. I don't trust any of this anymore. I'll be 100% honest with you. I thought I used to know I thought I knew what was going on, how it was going down. And now it's just like there's curveballs everywhere. But yeah, the tension is.
Yeah. It's the way things are shaking out. It's getting squirrely, man.
It's getting dodgy. It's getting really dodgy. So it's hard to say what's going to happen by the next week, but we will definitely be talking about this episode. However, on the coming up next Thursdays live at 8 p.m. on Wild and Weird Radio Live. Be here, and we're going to be talking about what you just heard tonight.
Because this is going to be a developing trend. You're gonna have this throughout, where we will start off the show, or at some point during the live show, we will go back to the previous week's episode. That way we've got a primer to get things kicked off, especially when it's a topic like what we had tonight.
Yeah. We were kind of all over the place, but there was a glue that held it all together.
Yeah.
And I wanted to touch on that shadow being stuff because he had such a great, he had a really good, a positive shadow person story. And you don't hear those.
Right.
And he demonstrated that what we've always said, just because it's dark doesn't mean it's 100% dark, right?
Yeah.
That was the first time we actually had that actually confirmed by a witness. And that's pretty awesome in my book. I mean, so.
Well, it just goes to show that, like, no matter where you're sitting at on these topics, no matter where your experiences lie, there's always a variety. There's always interpretations. There's always something going on. You know, there's something else beyond what is interpreted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fantastic subject though. And I'm glad we had somebody on who could really cover that. I've always wanted to do a time travel type episode. And boy, we pulled that one off. I think we pulled it off really well. So
I think it did great.
So what do you guys think? Did you enjoy that? Please do comments below.
Sound off, and remember to like and subscribe this video. If you liked the content that you just watched or that you just listened to, make sure you go like it. And guys, if you're listening to us, we greatly appreciate all of our listeners. We have a huge audio only base, and you guys are all fantastic. But if like a third of you guys could jump over to the YouTube and just like some of the videos or even subscribe, we understand you listen to us in audio, but go over and subscribe to our YouTube, because there's other stuff that we do that doesn't translate into the audio format. There's certain videos and presentations that will get shown, and those are really important. And I know a lot of you actually do listen, and then you'll go back and you'll scrub through to those points where we tell you to. We can see that, so we know it happens. But if you guys could just go subscribe over there to the YouTube channel, that'd be fantastic. And then you can keep listening. You can keep listening over on your desktop. You can keep listening in your off of your phone while you're working in the aisles. But real quick, it really helps us out, especially nowadays, because the way the podcast world has changed. Have you seen that Google Podcasts is going away?
No.
It's moving to YouTube now.
Is it really?
Google Podcast is going to effective in March. So you guys who are listening to us, me included on Google Podcast, your Google Podcast is going to be transferring to YouTube Music. So if you want to go ahead and get ahead of the curve on that, you can go over to YouTube and you can subscribe. See, there was a point to that message there.
Yeah, you probably should. And what that also does, Joe, is it opens them up to some really cool content, original content that we put up on there from time to time. Right now, not so much is going up because we have computer issues, but that will be rectified shortly. And when that happens, you will get to see some really cool original stuff that goes up. Like some of our past investigations and whatnot are up there right now. So you can go watch that. You can go see the Wineberry stuff. You can go see the library stuff. You can go see a lot of that stuff. And
go watch the lives.
Yeah, and go watch those lives because, man, some of those lives are fantastic. I mean, there's some really cool stuff that happens. There's good interaction that happens on there. If you want to be part of that, just come on over and do it. It's not your typical live. That's all I can say about that. It's a lot of fun, but you also learn a lot of stuff on those lives.
You really can. And one of the things that you'll learn off of the lives is where to find us next, because we always tell people where to find us next. You'll get the early access to workshops through the lives. You'll also find out what shows and where we're going to be. And this year, we're not doing as many shows as we have in the past.
We can't. And that's all we can say about that.
We can't talk about why.
We can't do it yet. Next year, yes, you will see.
We're just busy. We're going to be busy. Just know that much.
Yeah, very busy, extremely busy. So it's going to be a lot of fun for us this year.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a whole lot of fun for you guys this year and next year. So yeah, be looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of good stuff. I can say this. We've got some new products that'll be coming out. You're going to be able to finally get your hands on one of the big elongated skull models. Those will be back on the table at the next show. Finally.
We got us a new printer, boys. So we're going to be cranking those things out for you guys. And Ron's going to be knocking some out. I'm going to have Ron get me a few of them, and I'm going to put my own spin with the paint and sculpt on some additional fun for those things. And you guys are really, really going to like it.
Yep, it's going to be good.
Because those have always been a hit.
Yeah, they have been. They always just take so much time to do. And, but we've had time. Hey, it's the theme, Tom.
It is.
Theme. It's the theme tonight, man. Tom. But anyway, I digress. You guys, absolutely wonderful. Please do, like Joe said, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Be here Thursday for the lives. Because why not? What else you got to do? There's really nothing else to do. It's Thursday.
Right.
I mean,
Thursday, there's no hot TV on Thursday. Come hang out with us prime time, 8 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. Come hang out with like-minded people, join in the conversation, because that show is listener driven. It's not like our scripted show tonight. It is 100% listener driven.
Yep. And go check out Mike's stuff. Really fantastic stuff he's got there. Lots and lots and lots of content.
We're going to be throwing the link down below, guys. You'll be able to find it in the show notes. So y'all know where to find us. It's wildandweirdwv.com. You know how to get a hold of us. It's wildandweirdwv@gmail.com. If you've had a sighting, go to wildandweirdwv.com, click on the sightings link, and you'll be able to jump over there and report your sighting. If you want to find us on YouTube, guess what it is? It's Wild and Weird WV. Oh my gosh. You'd think amazing. That we did that on purpose.
It's amazing. Actually, we managed to get all of them, I think. I think I went through and managed to change all of them to Wild and Weird WV whatever now. So you should be able to just do a Google search for Wild and Weird WV. It can't be any simpler.
It'll bring us all. You'll get all the wild and weird content your heart's desire at that point. The next thing that we're going to be mentioning and bringing up will be on the live, and you don't want to miss it, because we're going to be announcing the dates for the High Strangeness Workshop.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be at Point Pleasant, and you guys are going to have a blast. It will sell out fast. It is not, I repeat, not ridiculously priced. It is priced where you can actually come have fun.
Yeah, you guys, y'all have been to our workshops before.
You already know this.
You already know. You
know how this works.
Because this ain't our first rodeo, and you guys can. It's affordable. It's family friendly, and it's good times.
And there's a lot of surprises that we can't talk about.
That's right. A lot of surprises we can't tell. Some really cool stuff. You guys will have fun.
Yeah. Until you're there, because we're going to have people who are there and they're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Gonna be great, guys.
It's going to be great. Love it.
So till next time, remember, if you see a shadow being when you're getting out of the shower, you've already seen yourself naked in the mirror. That's probably all it is. So don't freak out. Don't worry. Stay wild and weird, everybody.
Oh, that's terrifying.